Hello and welcome. So in today's show, then we are doing our first ever multi-chain discussion. We're looking at the potential of different projects working together and sharing innovation, research, technologies, and communities, and just seeing if we can kind of make a more coherent space, a more kind of collaborative space. Some of the efforts that have been happening so far have been ridiculously successful, and we've got a few of the guys on to talk about them today as well. So it should be a really interesting discussion. But let's just do a quick roundabout intro. So we've got Tivra, who's obviously from Decred community. We've got Exus, also from Decred community. We've got Johnny Law from the Digibyte community. We've got Jason, it's Squirrel from the ZCash community, and we've also got Litecoin Underground, obviously from the Litecoin community. So we've got a massive array today. We've got loads to discuss. If we don't manage to get through all the questions, I'm not worried. I've got a feeling we will be. We're going to be doing a lot of these. I think this is the way forward. Really, I think it's crazy. Yeah, it's just the way. So, as most of us know now, crypto is under attack from many kind of areas. So we've got centralized entities attacking the space and the principles that we believe in. We've also got government initiatives to kind of squash a lot of the stuff that's happening. So these kind of initiatives to bring everyone together are more relevant now than they probably ever have been. Within the Decred space, we've actually got a whole bunch of stuff happening. So let me just go through a couple of those things. So the first thing is the No Scam Alliance, which is run by Tivra, which is basically just a discussion group to pull in as many different communities as possible and actually talk about what's going on in their space, talk about the tech, and just have these general discussions. We've also got the Vanguard group, which is run by Tivra and Exodus, which is a social media effort to engage different communities and promote the efforts being made for non-custodial tech, peer-to-peer products and technologies. And coming up this week, we're looking at a rebrand of Decred magazine. So we're going to look at making a multi-chain publication called Cypherpunk Times. It will go live on Politeia, maybe sometime this week, maybe the week after. And the idea is that rather than being just for Decred, we're going to look at bringing a whole bunch of different publications or communities together and publish a whole bunch of content from a wide range. It should be really interesting, quite logistically heavy, but it should be interesting. And then finally, all of us here are involved in or have a listing on DCRDEX, which is our peer-to-peer exchange. So loads and loads of stuff happening. Hopefully we can grow that, and hopefully we can bring in other communities, projects, and tech as well. So we'll go around now. We'll ask the first question, which is, who are you and what is the unique selling point of the crypto project that you're representing? So we'll start with Jason from ZCash.
Hello, thank you. Awesome intro. And also just my appreciation. On behalf of the ZCash community, I could say thank you guys for the listing on DCRDEX. I think it's actually really important what you guys have done. Yeah, and just to go into the unique points about ZCash. ZCash offers fairly robust layer 1 privacy. And this is made possible by ZK Snarks. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this technology. And it essentially allows for all of our data to be held or transacted securely and safely. So if you think about blockchains, you should really understand that these are databases. I think oftentimes people forget, we're making transactions and we're sending it here and there, and we've got NFTs. But fundamentally, we have to remember that these are public databases. And so, ZCash essentially protects our information on those databases, and not just information for ourselves, but you have to also remember that this is information of the people that we're doing business with. This is information of family members, people who we're close with. And yeah, that's essentially the core selling point of what ZCash offers is protection of user information, and perhaps also freedom to choose and decide which information you share on these public databases.
Oh, fantastic. How about you, Litecoin Underground?
Let me unmute here. I just want to make a quick sidebar. You might notice my name. I have these stylized letters in them. And, I kind of consider myself part of the Doge community. See the D at the end there too, because Litecoin's merged mine with Dogecoin. So I've really tried to merge these communities together a little bit.
Oh, nice one.
But yeah, I mean, Litecoin, obviously, I think most people know what Litecoin is. Pretty much the second oldest coin that's functioning, let's say. And I think what's unique about Litecoin is that it is kind of this bridge between so many different projects. I think that's where we're kind of slowly becoming this place where it's it's on every exchange, on your PayPals and Venmos and BitPay, every platform you can get to. You have Litecoin. It's much more liquid, obviously, than a lot of other assets, and it's cheap to move and it's fast to move, and it's so easy to use. I think when people use it, it's an enjoyable experience, and I think that's really where we're slowly kind of finding our niche. Is that as people use it, they go, oh yeah, it works every time. And then slowly they find themselves going, well, why am I using the ones that are a pain in the butt? So I think, that, and like ZK said, we've added MWeb last year, which was a fungibility / privacy layer that's maybe similar to the way ZCash works. You can opt in, opt out based on your preference. And it hasn't gone mobile yet, but that's kind of the next big step, I think, for Litecoin to be closer to digital cash than anything else. Other than that, the ordinal stuff has come to Litecoin as well. So all that NFT business that, we all kind of didn't know what was going on forever, I'm kind of getting a crash course in, and it's very real. I'd say that the communities those people build in the NFT communities is incredibly strong, and they're great at doing it. And so it's a fun community. So that's kind of an exciting thing to me. I'm not hugely into it, but I think it's really cool to see new people come around.
Yeah, I concur with the Litecash being super cheap. I was on DCRDEX. I'm trying to build some volume this week. I'm using Decred to go to Litecoin, and it was just so cheap. And I hadn't realized that ordinals were available because I had to double my fees on Litecoin, and even by doubling, it was still like a fraction of a penny to transact. Yeah. It was crazy. But one of my transactions, I didn't double the fees, and it literally got stuck for 2 hours. Like, this has never happened to me before on Litecoin. It was
yeah,
crazy.
That's really strange.
Well, the minute I took it to two satoshis from one, it just went through instantly. Yeah, no, but that kind of rings true of what you were saying there. That's interesting. We'll dig into that in a bit. Johnny Law.
Hey, thanks for having us here. I'm excited to be part of the discussion today. I think I've been talking about an interoperable future for quite some time, in which all of these chains with their unique characteristics provide specific utility in a marketplace that might need it as it develops further. Whether it's privacy, whether it's the utility of a payment layer, or being able to process things that are a bit more complex from a smart contracts perspective. I think each of these chains represents an opportunity to solve a problem, and they can work together. So always excited to see projects that come to that kind of conclusion. So hats off to Decred for building out that future and understanding that we can't be locked onto permissioned exchanges and develop a permissionless marketplace. So looking forward to continue to build in that arena. For Digibyte, 9 years, Bitcoin fork, couple of key features. Obviously, we approach NFTs in a little different way with the Digi asset layer, which we can talk through in a bit. The multi-shield, real-time difficulty adjustment was a pretty key innovation for Digibyte that ended up being used obviously by a number of protocols. And then the multi-algo mining in terms of decentralization on the mining aspect and making sure that the chain continues to operate at 15 seconds a block pretty much eternally has been pretty key in making sure that we are consistent and we're always processing the transactions, and then scalable, right? So we're up to about 1,000 transactions a second, theoretical. We're not using anywhere near that capacity. Our payment layer is very efficient, cheap to move, and really, much like Litecoin, have experienced no downtime.
Yeah, I mean, I hold both Litecoin and Digibyte. I haven't really touched on the two projects technically for a long time, but I was looking at some of your posts, and I was also looking at some of Renzo's posts. It's quite interesting to see some of the wallet technology that's going on there, and I was definitely interested to ask you a bit later on in the show about your NFT technology as well. So yeah, it certainly does seem interesting. And one of the things that brought me to Digibyte a few years back was the five layers of mining? Was it
Yeah,
four?
five algorithms.
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, we should definitely dig into that. And it does seem like, I mean, even Decred now is looking to move towards GPU mining away from the ASIC stuff. Anything to add on to that, Exodus? Maybe it might be quite nice to talk about your Vanguard project in terms of the cross chain ideas that you've got.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, well, we're all here because Decred built the free and open source DCRDEX, which was funded by Decred's coin holders. I don't know if you want me to give a quick introduction to Decred, just because there's other people from other projects watching. So
yeah, that
I'm
might be
Exodus.
quite cool, yeah.
I contribute to the Decred project. Decred combines proof of work and proof of stake to create a hybrid system whereby coin holders have direct voting rights on consensus changes and proposals. Consensus changes are like, say, block size or block time or even block rewards. So kind of all the really special, underlying rules of the network you can change. The project is funded by its own block reward. 10% of the block reward is allocated into a decentralized treasury fund controlled by the same Decred coin holders. And with these tools, we can build free and open source software with no rent seeking. That means like no fees, no ads, no stealing of your data. And DCRDEX is pretty much a great example of this, of being able to build technology, as I said, no fees, no rent seeking. So yeah, with Decred Vanguard, we just want to promote things like the DCRDEX. We want to promote projects that are doing, that are really pushing things forward.
Yeah. One thing we should probably say is the reason Decred can do that is because it does have its own funding, so it is self-funded. It's not like we're doing it all for free or anything like that. There is still fee mechanisms behind the scenes, but when we pass on the tech, or when the builders pass on the tech, the aim is to be purely peer-to-peer. A lot of people find that very hard to believe, and I've come up against lots and lots of skepticism, especially when it's revolving around.
I believe Charlie Lee of Litecoin suggested that Litecoin try to do that at some point, of allocate a portion of the block reward into a fund to pay people, as opposed to giving all of the block reward to the proof of work miners. So I think Roger Ver of Bitcoin Cash wanted to do something similar. So I don't think that it's considered a bad idea by anyone. It's just not many people are doing it, but I think it's great, and I think it's worked really well for Decred thus far.
I think so. I think it is a nice way to stay on track, that's for sure. And we have seen VCs come into projects and actually wreck them because they have their own narratives involved. Whereas when the coin holders are dictating how the money is spent, it does make it a little bit, hopefully, more transparent. And obviously, I think, I know that ZCash has also got a DAO as well, so we're not the only people in the space doing that. Tivra, do you want to talk briefly about your No Scam Alliance and getting people involved in that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for hosting this. It's been a real pleasure to listen to the guests. I just wanted to also say a few words about Decred, if I may, because in addition to the DCRDEX, I think what's the most distinguishing feature of Decred is it's basically, we can call it the oldest DAO. Basically, either this title goes to Decred or it goes to Dash. I don't know, but many of us who witnessed the block size wars with Bitcoin, we saw that what's needed is a better and more formalized system to how to solve disputes. This is really important. And so when people ask me what is Decred, I usually just, to someone who doesn't have even a very long, let's say, attention span, I just say it's like Bitcoin with voting, with coin voting, because you need to compress it in a short sentence. So that's what I would say. Yeah. So the main feature is adaptability, right? We can integrate any feature we want, and because of the treasury you mentioned, we can also fund public goods like the DEX. The idea came from for this so-called No Scam Alliance. Maybe it should have a better name. I'm not sure if the name is a good one. It was kind of a joke because of the acronym, but basically, I was hosting Spaces, Twitter Spaces, and I noticed that talking mainly to first of all Monero community, and then to Digibyte and ZCash communities, I learned that we have a lot in common. And because of the DEX listing all these coins, it also lists Dogecoin, which Litecoin UndergrounŞ mentioned. So he can also represent Dogecoin here because they're also on the DEX. But yeah, it's obviously it's not really. It wasn't meant really as an alliance first. It was meant as a hashtag, like basically something like a hashtag, and then we see what happens from it, right? Something that starts as a hashtag, and then you see what can come out of it. So for now, it's just a Telegram group, and everyone from these communities is invited. We also have a channel on Bison Relay, which is a decentralized social media, encrypted social media. It's like it's kind of comparable to Nostr in some ways, but right now the most active channel is still on Telegram. So we will be moving it to or not. We will see. For now, it's just Telegram is the most accessible, and we are basically discussing. I think I would put it like this. I don't think there is we shouldn't fake or make some kind of collaboration artificially, like saying, oh, let's collaborate together, because then it's a lot of words that maybe don't have any real effect. But I think that what unites us, in my view, is the struggle, right? We're struggling against the same thing, in a sense. And one of these things that we're struggling with is now being in the spotlight in the form of all these tokens that are now being declared securities and so on. But I don't want to play this game like Bitcoiners play, everything is a scam. No. But I want to say, a lot of this stuff has been taking the spotlight away from projects that are building on the original idea, of electronic peer-to-peer cash. So in my view, a lot of attention because of the VC money and because of these centralized exchanges, how are they behaving? It was being drawn or being redirected to those projects, which, in my view, at least for me, it's not what crypto was originally meant to be about. So that's it. I think the No Scam Alliance is an alliance of having the same struggle. I don't want to say the same enemy because that would be a bit maybe too provocative, but yeah, that's basically what I think.
Yeah, I must admit, when I saw it in one of your tweets, I just run with it. I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. Whilst we're on the subject, I mean, it might be quite cool to actually find out how other projects fund their development, fund their communities, and get the word out. So I don't know if any of you guys have got anything to say about that for your specific communities or projects.
Hey, yeah, I could go. So ZCash, very similar to Decred, has a dev fund, and this is a 20% allocation of every block that's mined. So miners receive 80%, and 20% is allocated by the protocol to the dev fund. And so we basically have a list of addresses, and those addresses belong to different organizations. So there's the ZCash Foundation, there is the Electric Coin Company, which handles like core protocol development and research and all this stuff. And there's also the ZCash Community Grants Program. And this is an organization that lists like various things like RFPs, or people could come to the ZCG and request to build like certain applications. And this is just another route of funding, and it's community run, and they actually receive the largest proportion of the dev fund. And yeah, we've also got a new organization called Shielded Labs, and it's part of an effort to further decentralize, because those organizations that I mentioned are based in the US. And within the ZCash community, we almost see this as there is some element of risk involved there. So Shielded Labs is going to be based abroad, and it would also help with core protocol development. And yeah, for the moment, that's how we handle things. But I'm super interested in how Decred manages its coin holder voting. This is super interesting, not just to me, but other members. I think a few days ago, we had a dev town hall, a dev fund town hall, and the ZCash community got together. And one of the main ideas that came up actually referred back to a conversation which I had with Tivra, in which we were talking about Decred voting, how you guys handle the voting, and how it eliminates certain risks. So yeah.
Before I let Exodus answer that question, 2 questions. What's an RPF, and how much money do each of the pots hold currently?
I'm not entirely sure. It's request for proposal, I think.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely sure the exact amount of dollar amount. I'm not too sure, but I do know
not paid in ZEC.
It's paid in ZEC.
Yeah.
But because it's taken out of every block, I know that the ZCash Foundation gets 7% of. So the current block reward is 3.15 ZEC. So 7% of that goes to the ZCash Foundation, 8% goes to the ZCash Community Grants Program, and I think it's 5% goes to the ECC.
And what I'm really interested in is how transparent it is. So do these 3 current companies, do they have a transparent balance?
Yes, it's held transparently. We do produce, or each of those organizations releases quarterly transparency reports, which has the full balances, where it's been allocated. Yeah, that's all fully transparent.
So off the top of your head, do you remember what the balance is for the ECC from the last quarter?
No, I'm not.
No, that's fine.
I could get that to you.
No, it's not a problem. I just, it's something I'm really interested in, to see how DAOs, like, how they treat their funds, really. And I looked at Nano for a little while, and they had quite a large portion that was dedicated to their development fund. And after about 4 years, it was like drained to practically zero. It's like, it was something like 4 million they got, and it was drained to about 100,000. And I was just wondering, and I could never find out that they said to me that they held theirs in dollars, so that's why it wasn't showing up. But I was just curious, really. Exodus, did you want to take the question about coin holder voting?
Sure. So Decred holders can choose to lock up their coins in our proof of stake system and purchase what is called a ticket. So the ticket difficulty, similar to the proof of work mining, is always changing in difficulty and cost. But basically what happens is you buy a ticket, it goes into a pool, and then these tickets are randomly called to be included in the proof of work block, which then validates the block. And these tickets include vote bit info that basically cast your vote, yes, no, or you can choose to abstain. So when there's a consensus vote going on, basically it tallies all of these votes that are being included in the block, and if the votes are higher than 75%, the chain will actually automatically hard fork to the new rules of the network. So we have a vote coming up probably by the end of the year, which is going to actually change our proof of work mining algorithm. So we're changing our algorithm, which is going to brick all of the existing ASICs. And we're doing this because basically we realized how centralized ASIC mining is. And maybe we can talk about this, how this is affecting other projects. I know Litecoin and ZCash have ASIC mining, but for us, it wasn't working. So we decided to go ahead and change those rules. And then for our proposal system, Politeia, basically it takes a snapshot of our ticket pool, and then it gives you voting power based on the number of tickets you have. So anyone can submit a proposal. All you need is 0.1 Decred, and you can submit a proposal on our Politeia system, which is basically our DAO. So an example of this is recently for the DCRDEX, there was a proposal submitted to build out a mesh network, because right now there's just a centralized server, and we want to make it so there's a mesh network of servers to make it even, truly decentralized. So that proposal went up there, and basically the proposal author has a budget of how much they're going to spend, who's going to work on it, the time frame. Then it goes to vote, and Decred coin holders, again, there's a snapshot of the ticket pool. They have voting power. Go ahead and cast the vote from their wallet, yes or no. Votes are tallied, and if it's above 60%, the proposal author and all the contractors working in that proposal can now bill against that proposal every month against the Decred treasury. So I guess that's a pretty quick rundown of Decred voting.
Cool. Johnny, do you want to take it next?
Yeah, just a couple of things. One, thanks for sharing how y'all's DAOs are working out for you, like in terms of how it's evolving, and making sure that you're evolving towards a decentralized system. I truly appreciate that. Recognizing some of the challenges that you're facing, and potentially heading them off at the pass, so to speak. It sounds fairly similar to Pivx DAO, which at this point runs with master nodes that vote on community proposals and then issues based on the approval of the proposal to fund it. From Digibyte's perspective, going back to the original question regarding marketing, how do we fund it? How do we work through it? We have no proof of stake process. We have no real voting on-chain process. It is 100% a grassroots, decentralized community effort, which has its own challenges. Some years ago, the Digibyte awareness team was formed and challenged with that very prospect of how do we get the name and the tech to be understood and the greater narrative. And it has been a challenge for certain, right? Even now, folks that who have purportedly been in the crypto space for quite some time, I run into, have never heard of or understood Digibyte's sort of history, and the challenges continuing even to this day. How do we break free of that OG Dino coin sort of status, and help folks understand that we never really got off path, right? We stayed true to Satoshi's mission the entire time, and we've not compromised on any of those values, which is a pretty unique thing in this space. And there's a couple of you guys here, Litecoin, I'm looking at you, that have stayed on that path as well. And I know some of Decred and you guys are working hard to remain on that path, which is why I think we struggle to gain traction somewhat, because we're up against, and somebody said, I think it was Tivra earlier, that we wouldn't call them enemies, but I certainly would say that there are enemies out there with stacks of VC cash from unknowable sources impacting how the crypto marketplace evolves, right? And so that's what we're up against, right? So I think conversations like these, from a marketing perspective, we have to address the root problem as to why this narrative of peer-to-peer permissionless is being kind of pushed off to the side.
Yeah, I must admit, I was reading through and I saw some of your video streams, and one of the questions that you put, one of the points that you made was about the suppression of price and things like that. And Decred, I don't know if you're aware, was actually going through a very similar thing. It's one of the reasons that we're moving away from ASIC miners, is because a guy called what's his name?
Taco Revenge.
Yeah, Taco Revenge came up with some on-chain research that basically showed that all the big exchanges were moving coins to actually kind of, every time that there was some kind of pump, just kind of suppress the price. And I mean, I don't really want to go massively into that, but it was interesting to see that at the time, and I know that was about a year ago, that you felt something along those lines was happening to Digibyte, and I thought that was quite interesting. And I also get the point about a lot of the projects, the dinosaur projects, if you like, including Decred, they can't get their narrative into big publications. You know, trying to get a decent article written in Cointelegraph or one of the other big publications is actually quite difficult. It's one of the other reasons that we want to rebrand Decred magazine to Cypherpunk Times and be more inclusive, so that if any of the projects involved have a piece of tech, they say, look, we've got this big promotion coming up, we can put it on there and use a coordinated effort to actually get that marketing done at relatively low cost, actually, to the individual community. And that's what happens when you come together like that. So it is something we're all facing. We're facing this across social media. We're facing it in major publications. We're facing it in so many different ways. If you're trying to be sound money where you're excluding VCs, you're literally kicked to the curb. So that's what this is about. And I appreciate that everyone here is kind of seeing that, which is great. Litecoin Underground, tell us your story.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not a part of the Litecoin Foundation, but I think most people would identify, Charlie Lee, the creator of Litecoin. He founded the foundation, I believe, in 2017 after he left Coinbase. And primarily that's funded through donations. I know Charlie himself has matched any donation that's made to the foundation. He's matched for the last 6 years. So when people say he left Litecoin, he didn't leave Litecoin. He's still very active in it. That's where I would say the primary development is funded, and the overall vision, I guess, of where Litecoin is going comes from. It's been kind of an interesting conversation, that level of centralization versus decentralization, and that complete decentralization is sometimes really difficult to manage, and it doesn't have a cohesive plan. And so there's always some kind of group of people that says, here, this is probably the next step, or is more knowledgeable about the technology that's going to guide it. And I would say the foundation has been on the big moves, the big ideas, changes that need to be made, has been the driver of that. Outside of that, we just, like with this ordinals stuff we talked about in, I think January or February, once ordinals came to Bitcoin, there was a guy who comes into our spaces all the time, Indigo Nakamoto. If you're not following him, he's a good follow. He's a Litecoiner. But he started doing bounties just like casually. He said, look, I'll 5 Litecoin for whoever can port this technology from Bitcoin over to Litecoin. That's one of the nice things about Litecoins. It's so similar to Bitcoin. It's very easy. I shouldn't say very easy. I'm not a developer, but relatively easy to move things from Bitcoin to Litecoin. And so that kind of got some momentum, and we've added, there's been a few things that I would say aren't at the protocol level, that are more at the kind of tools with which you can use Litecoin. Those are the things that are being more developed kind of by these bounties. And he and I have been doing a little bit of back and forth, maybe thinking about creating some sort of entity that can more formalize the process as opposed to tweets, right? But that's been great. And again, that brings in developers that maybe didn't have any interest in Litecoin before that. But I think the guy that bounty ended up getting up to maybe $2,500 or something. So it was pretty exciting for him to do that. But yeah, as far as a formalized funding, there is none for Litecoin. And I would say, you guys mentioned DAOs. I know there's been some talk of that, I couldn't tell you why. But I'm with you, like with the Litecoin wallet, like the foundation created the Lite wallet. I think there's an option in there to like tack on a penny to every transaction or something, or whatever it is, to donate each time you use it. So yeah, I mean, if people build tools that others want to use, that's certainly okay for them to make some money or to expect some compensation, right?
Yeah, I think so. And to be honest, I don't mind the donation funded mechanism. When I started doing my videos on Decred Society channel, God knows how many years ago now, about 3 or 4 years ago, that I literally put my address at the bottom, fund me, and I'll kind of move through it. And I really respected the fact that if the community liked what you were doing, they'd get behind it. And that is something that the crypto space definitely has, which is nice. So yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to that. I do like the formal process of the way Decred does it, because when you're trying to raise a lot of money, donation based it becomes a bit of a pain in the ass, to be fair. But I think it's all fair game there. I was going to say something else. No, it's gone. I've lost it. But thank you for that, guys. I really appreciate that. So before I move on to the next question, is there any other kind of thoughts that anyone wants to add?
Well, I do. I kind of want to touch on what Johnny was saying about like getting your name or your, I don't know, your message out there. And it is such a crowded space, and you're up against this behemoth of marketing money. Like, we all know what we're talking about, right? I've really thought a lot about that, because I look at my spaces as been more of a community building thing. We talk technically, but the reality is the technical stuff is very difficult for a lot of people, and it's just, they're not interested in it. And so thinking through, I mean, you look at what are the 2 most successful communities, probably, well, 3 most successful, you'd say would be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and probably Dogecoin, frankly, for how many followers they have. And I think there's a very, I call it maybe an easily definable ethos to those communities. And Bitcoin is like this hard money, sound money. It attracts a certain personality. ETH is like the playground, and Doge is just meme fun. But it works. I mean, the reality is people want to have fun. They don't want to be sitting here talking about block times and ZK rollups and stuff. I mean, it's just it's not on people's daily agenda. And I think tapping into that more and understanding why is the thing you're building important? Why should it be meaningful to people? That's really the thing I've been puzzling over. And it takes a long time to really think about, why is this important? Why should people care?
Yeah.
That's the end of the day. You got to tap into that, and then hopefully it grows organically, because you're not going to force someone to love 2.5 minute block times over 10-minute block times on. It's just not, that's not how they're going to identify with something.
Yeah, I would say the friendliness and enthusiasm in Dogecoin is contagious, and anyone who hangs out around them, everyone, it gets really excited and amped up about Dogecoin. And that's kind of why I created Decred Vanguard, was try to recreate something similar to that in Decred, where there's enthusiasm and excitement and positivity, because all of those emotions are contagious. And like I said earlier, within Decred, we did the research on the ASIC mining cartel, and for a while there was an atmosphere of kind of conspiracy and paranoia, and I hope we kind of move away from that. But yeah, being positive is definitely the way to go.
Another thing I wanted to add is to what Litecoin Underground said is, I think most people care just about the end product, and in the end, when cryptocurrency really succeeds, ideally people wouldn't even think about these things we're talking about now, right?
That's right.
So basically, like in the internet, right? Nobody thinks about the infrastructure stuff that we who are a little bit older all know about, but today people use the internet like they breathe air, right? Of course, that has also its problems, because people also, let's say, can be manipulated by not knowing how something works and so on. It does have its problems, definitely. But if you want something to go mainstream, you gotta accept this aspect that was mentioned, of convenience, of fun, of thinking about the end product for the user and so on.
Well, for them, it's about, and when you think about it, it's like about your freedom of your money, or your freedom to choose what you want to do. I mean, that's the multi-chain world, is like, here, there's options for you. You don't have to be forced into using something you don't want to use. And what does that mean to people? Like, for the most part in the US, people still are very trusting. I would have guessed in Europe as well, of their money. They don't really think much about it. So really making them see like, why can't you trust it? Or here are some reasons why it's wrong. I don't know. It's hard. It's a challenge.
Well, and you guys are both on the money. I think ultimately that's the balance we have to strike, right? Because there is in my heart a lot of optimism as to what all of this technology can unlock for society, right? But we have to address some of the real challenges that kind of stand in the way. But I think that's a conversation for people like us, right? That want to discuss those things in depth and understand and be realistic about those challenges versus what we sort of put forth into the larger narrative, hoping that we can build that more fun community where people don't actually have to understand how the blockchain works. It just works. And that's why I say we continue to build the capacity that we know we're going to need in order to create this permissionless marketplace that we also know the world is going to need, so that when we arrive at that moment, when folks don't understand, why they can't access their money, they have a place to turn to, they have a place to go to, they've heard about it, they're a fun group of people. Look, I don't have to know technology all that well, but this system I know will work, and I know that it can't be arbitrarily stopped. And so I think that's where conversations like we're having today are really important. And I appreciate that Decred, kind of stepped forward to say, let's talk about it.
Yeah, just one more point on that real quick. And like the trust comes in numbers in a way. Like people are going to end up trusting something because they're not going to know the technology. And that's where the growth of a community is like, well, if there's 10,000 people that believe this, I'm more likely to trust it that they're not all being duped, right? Where if it's a really small community, they go, this might just be, some sort of conspiracy. They're trying to fool me into something. And that's the community growth is so critical,
Yeah, I can agree with all those points actually, and especially growing the community does seem relevant to pretty much all the projects here. One thing, just to keep on the kind of happy tone, building up momentum through doing positive things. On the interview that ZecHub had with Tivra, they talked about the challenges that they were running with their community. I don't know if you want to chip in and tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So on this point of having fun and community engagement, and most importantly, education, what ZCash community has decided to do is create this organization or project called ZecHub, and we run like competitions, and we have events, and all of these competitions and events have like an underlying purpose. So in many of the events, you'd be required to use your ZCash wallet in some way. So you could send a shielded memo, and that memo would have to have some answers to a quiz or something. Or you could create a unified address QR code, and this address type can send shielded ZEC, or it could send transparent ZEC. And we just made these events with the purpose of really giving people a hands-on understanding of how to use ZCash. On that point, I actually came across Bison Relay on my own. Like I was just like finding things that would be interesting, and I came across it, and I really liked. I actually wrote an article on decentralized social networks and how they are just as important as the payment. So we have these payment protocols, which are decentralized, but alongside that, we also need to have the social networks and the infrastructure that binds it together. I think Bison Relay is soon to integrate some kind of market functionality or market listing.
Yes. It's going to have pages and storefronts.
Storefronts, exactly. So this is how it kind of links together. So what we did is we made a competition, and we said as part of the competition you'd need to join Bison Relay and join the ZCash community group chat. So people had some trouble, and it was interesting to see the troubles that they ran into. And I spoke with some of the people in the Decred Telegram chat just to let them know like which areas people had some trouble with. But yeah, the important thing is that decentralized social networks are just as important as decentralized payment networks. They have to run together. They have to work together for, I think, either of them to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the idea of these challenges, and before you guys all came on, we were talking about doing some cross chain challenges where you pay a certain amount of whatever Digibyte or ZEC or Decred for the other person from the other community to actually integrate to actually start using some of the tech from the other community, which I thought was quite interesting as well. And I really like these ideas of trying to keep it fun. And I mean, just to stay on this topic, I mean, whether you like them or hate them, NFTs are that fun point at the moment, aren't they? They're the things that's bringing everyone in. That's the thing that's, although lots of the big money has now kind of exited the space and they'll probably be back in a year or so, a lot of the DGen culture is still thriving. And I think it was Johnny in one of the tweets said, Pepe's gone up 1,000% or something like that. So this thing is still alive. And it was like, yeah, that kind of gets you thinking about that. So I suppose the next question is what do you guys think of NFTs and tokens, and how is your specific projects dealing with them? How are they going to kind of get them involved? And I know we'll start with Litecoin because we got the ordinals thing happening. Is there a place where we can go to check out Litecoin ordinals or any other thing that's happening? What else is happening?
I'll tell you, go follow. I'm going to give you somebody to follow because I'm not the whiz on this. I mentioned Indigo Nakamoto. Yeah. The other guy is Luke. Find his name. Luke Wright Main. WRIGHT. Actually, no, I can. So I know he's been leading up a lot of these like Litecoin punks and tokens, and he's gotten super involved in. There's a couple discords out there. So again, I'm not into developing and all that. Although I am gonna buy my first NFT next week. I feel a little nuts, to be honest.
That's what I want to know is where can I buy a Litecoin NFT if that's possible?
Well, I'm not even buying a Litecoin NFT. That's the crazy part. I guess I'm
buying. Where are you going, man?
Well, we had a couple weeks ago in the spaces. I had his name's Danny. I can't pronounce his last name. It's HUUEP. He created On-Chain Monkeys. He was, I guess, Charlie's friend like 20 years ago, and he came in and just kind of explained it, and they're doing some kind of minting thing next week. And I was like, he seemed like a super smart dude. He's been in it a long time. They've been successful. So go with people that are smarter than you. That'd be invest in people that are smarter than you are. Yeah. That'd be a good rule. But yeah, so I mean, as far as Litecoin's concerned, I know there's a couple platforms coming up. There's both NFTs. So NFTs are like, OmniLite, where you guys know what they are, where there's an image stored somewhere else and you're buying kind of the pointer or the certificate of authenticity to that image or document, whatever. So there are a couple platforms for that on OmniLite, which is Liteverse. There's a Litecoin Studio. It's just brand new. There's a third one I can't think of. I'll think of it later. But and then there's ordinals. Ordinals or inscriptions are actually stored on the Litecoin blockchain. So that means the image is just like every other transaction. You can go essentially, if you have the right website, can view any of these images that are on chain, and you're actually holding a Satoshi that is linked to that image. So it's movable in wallets. I'll say that stuff's very, very new. And I'm not sure that it's fully secure 100%. There's not a lot of marketplaces around it and that type of stuff. I know people are losing ordinals occasionally just because not every wallet is able, controls your Satoshis properly. So if you spend something, you could lose it in the fee. It's a very strange concept, but I know there's a lot of excitement around it. And I would say we've had a massive influx of people.
Is it because it's linked to individual Satoshis? Is that how ordinals work?
Yeah. Yep. So essentially they identify whatever one out of, I think on Bitcoin, 21 quadrillion Satoshis exist. So, yeah, I don't know what the markers, and they've numbered them. And what was interesting when that Danny guy came in, the first person to suggest tracking Satoshis back in 2012 was Charlie Lee. So there you go. He's had a hand in this for over a decade ago.
The guy's a smart dude, man.
Yeah,
it was 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis.
Right.
but yeah, no, it's cool.
Well, so transactions on Bitcoin, went bananas, and then Litecoin went, I think, almost to 1 million a day, and Dogecoin doesn't even have. This all got kind of enabled for Taproot, which allowed you to create larger witness data. And Dogecoin doesn't even have Taproot or SegWit, and yet somebody has been like bombarding Dogecoin with images, but really, really small ones. And I think they were doing like 1.5 million to 2 million transactions a day in the last week or two. It's been wild.
It's fair to say that the last month, maybe two, it's gone crazy with NFTs and ordinals and things like that, and it's brought a lot of hype around it. Johnny Law, the one that I'm really interested in, and I couldn't quite work out how you guys do it. I don't know if you can put any more scope on it. How does Digibyte do their digi assets? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's been around for a bit, I think going on 4 years now, and developed again as of early 2021. So you can go to DigiAssetX.com right now. So DigiAssetX.com right now. You can kind of see that marketplace. And actually register as a creator. You'll see that there's a marketplace established, and those are all digi assets. So essentially, you're hashing your data onto IPFS, and then it's referenced in a hash that gets recorded on the blockchain. So whenever you're minting something, you're essentially creating two hashes, and so your little safety deposit box that you're creating, that number is stored on chain, and then it references the file stored on IPFS with the whole Filecoin sort of decentralized storage system, which is pretty cool. We do have the ability through the app layer to create some rudimentary smart contracts as well, which allows for that wallet-to-wallet marketplace without an intermediary in between, which is nice. You'll see that there also on digiassetx.com. And right now, Matthew is actually raising funds to update that DigiAssetX core to C++ language, so that it can it's just more efficient and easier to implement on additional sites. So it's pretty cool. I've been involved in NFTs for quite some time, both on the Ethereum chain, Tezos, Matic, and then obviously I've got a lot of digi assets as well. And it's 100% gets a lot of excitement around it, right? But I think it's a start, right? My favorite creator on Digi Assets is DGB. Like, we have a multimedia comic book. Several community members got involved even in doing some of the voices inside that comic book. And then that actually opened up the character assets, right? So then DGB took those characters out, created NFTs of those characters, and then he actually had a distribution system, an airdrop, if you will. If you hold the comic book, you get so many of these tokens. That token then unlocked another marketplace that only token holders could get into to have even rarer sort of assets that were tied back to the comic book as well. So it's really cool, and I'm excited to see it continue to develop. We saw our first wallet come out through Securus. This last couple of weeks have been beta testing it, that actually allows for interaction of those digi assets in a mobile platform, which is the first time that's occurred. So continuing to develop that to make it more user friendly, because as exciting as the technology is, I think it was stated earlier, what we really want is for people not to know it's there, but it to work properly.
Yeah, I think that's the desired effect. Like Litecoin Underground was saying, is actual fact people coming into this space, they don't want to talk about the tech, they just want it to be there and to move on. But to say about DGB's comic, oh my god, that blew me away. That's why I was getting into it. I was trying to buy one of his comics. I think there was like one left, and I was trying to get it, but I couldn't quite work out. I ran out a bit of time, but yeah. The interview that you were on with him, and they showed all the graphics and the animations and stuff, and your lovely voiceover as well, which is it's cool. Yeah, I thought that was absolutely amazing. What a great artist. How about you guys over on ZCash? Have you got any plans to have NFTs and tokens?
We've got one. We've got an NFT. Yeah, it's called Cypherpunk Zero, and it was an initiative from the ECC, the Electric Coin Company, I think in 2020 or 2021, released this whole collection, and it's in line with your Cypherpunk Times thing. It's like a cool futuristic, I don't know, hacker type theme that's going on. It's on the Ethereum blockchain. It's ERC11 whatever token it is. But more interestingly, yes, we have the NFT on Ethereum. We're trying to do things with it. It's really cool that DGB has this IPFS NFT, and I think you guys should look into exactly what you could do with it. There's a lot of token gating that's happening, and having some media. Perhaps you could look into it with your magazine. You could have some media that is behind a IPFS, like an NFT token gate, something to look into. But also ZCash is working on ZSA, so it's a ZCash Shielded Assets Protocol, and it's going to combine with the Orchard pool. So ZCash has two shielded pools. It's got Sapling and Orchard. Sapling is the one that came out in 2018, and Orchard is the one that came out last year. And so there's been this super dedicated team called Kedit, and they're actually very close to completing this protocol, which will join with the existing Orchard pool, and we'll be able to have stable coins, essentially any other asset that exists on whichever other chain could be bridged over into ZCash. And essentially, if you want to hold Polygon, or if you want to hold like Litecoin even, we could have shielded layer 1 assets on Zcash. And if you need to spend, let's say, on a Litecoin debit card, you could then bridge it back over and spend it on your debit card or on whichever other smart contract you're looking to exchange with.
Wow, that sounds crazy interesting. I have to look into that. You have to leave us a link, man. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Testnet is going to be in perhaps the next 2 months. So yeah, look out for that.
I think it's undeniable that this stuff is gauging traction, and it's interesting as hell, really. I love this idea of, I think it was Johnny that said it, about kind of interoperability and bridging all of these assets and bridging over communities and stuff. I just love this idea. Exodus or Tivra, or both. What are your thoughts on NFTs? Do you think Decred's going to get NFTs and tokens?
Well, sure. I'll answer quickly, and I'll let Tivra go next. But I think it'd be interesting. I know Jake, who's the project lead of Decred, has said he could do NFTs in a way that doesn't clog up the blockchain. I think it would be interesting to pursue. Personally, I'm not so much into NFTs, but it seems a lot of people are excited about it, and it could be worth pursuing. But maybe Tivra could speak a bit more.
Oh, yes. What I do know is that they are coming, but yeah, not in the way ordinals are. So it's my understanding that it would be connected to the current timestamping service that Decred offers. So it would be a timestamping of assets rather than the picture being on the blockchain, so to speak. In general, I think I see a lot of potential for NFTs in gaming. Personally, that's something that I think there is a future in that. You know, like preserving your game assets in various game titles and so on. But yeah, I think that just I define myself as a kind of a crypto boomer. So like I couldn't even get into the culture of NFTs, even though it's not really a new trend, because I was following Counterparty, which is the original, let's say, at least that I know of. Maybe there were earlier, but I think it's the earliest NFT kind of project. Definitely it's something that attracts people, and especially it goes back to what we were talking about before. Sometimes we forget that not all people are, let's say, technical minded. Some people are more visual, artistic, and so on. And so attracting a diverse, let's say, diverse in the sense of different kinds of talents into this space is essential. And I think the project that was most successful in this historically, I think, is Ethereum. Like Ethereum really attracted very different kinds of people. Like, you know, like for instance, if you take Monero really attracts just one kind of person, right? Just, it's a libertarian, it's probably a little bit more technical minded person and so on. Not necessarily, but Ethereum has really all kinds of people, tutti frutti, so to speak. So I think that's the major thing that interests me about NFTs, that it attracts a different kind of person that thinks more visually, let's say. And I think the question, to be honest, who knows what's the fate of NFTs, right? I don't know. Will it be still a big trend in 1 year or not? I don't know. We will see. Probably yes, because I think realistically, I don't think Decred will have NFTs before 1 year, to be honest. So hopefully we don't make them already when when the hype is all gone. No, but seriously, I think there will be applications, like there are many possible applications beyond just collectibles, art collectibles, that haven't really been tried yet. And I'm also wondering if let's say, if they were recognized also in the real world as asset ownership, so that even, it would even stand up in court, then I think, like, you own an asset, and that's also stands in court that you are really the owner of the digital asset. Then that would really make it much more, the usability would be on a whole different level, I think. And it would totally defeat the whole, you can save as JPEG criticism about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. Thank you, guys. It's absolutely amazing. Look, we've just passed the hour point. I'm not sure how you guys are doing for time. I'm okay to carry on for a bit, but obviously let me know if you guys want to stop. But we've pretty much covered everything on my list, although we haven't done it in the way I thought we'd do it, but that's absolutely fine. So what I want to do is just open up the floor to any questions from the community, any questions or any thoughts from anyone participating here, and just kind of round up the discussion for maybe the next 10 minutes or so. So if you guys in the chat have got any questions, I can pop them up on screen and we can discuss those. How about you guys? Anyone here? Anything that you want to ask?
I would want to ask, like, what do you guys think is the best way to promote the DCRDEX? I made a post on the Litecoin subreddit the other day, and it got over 100 upvotes. I got like 10,000 views, just saying, hey, you can trade Litecoin between Litecoin and Bitcoin, peer-to-peer, no KYC, no trading fees. And a lot of people seem to like it, but and of course, the DCRDEX has a native Litecoin wallet, so it's really easy. You press a button, you have a Litecoin wallet, Litecoin node, all built in. So the Litecoin pair is super easy right now. I believe that native ZCash and possibly native Digibyte are coming, which is going to make it much easier. But what do you think is the best way to promote this technology? Because as of right now, the Decred Bitcoin pair has the most liquidity, followed by, I believe, Litecoin, Bitcoin. But we really need more liquidity on the DCRDEX, which is basically going to come through marketing and just getting people on it.
Well, because we talked about Decred Dex at some point in time, one of our spaces, and I was trying to just navigate it, and I'm not, I don't know, I've been around for 6 or 7 years, but I don't know, something wasn't clicking with me. I didn't feel comfortable that I didn't know where, I didn't know how to operate it, basically, right? And I didn't want to put too much money into it. So I've always wanted to do something like this, to actually demo it live and have me walk through as a noob and ask the dumb questions, because I think it's really, some of these things can get pretty intimidating. If I've never used Decred before, maybe I don't understand how your system works as far as addresses. I know some coins have different like protocols and how you actually transmit money. So that I know that was something.
DEX recently? Was this recent?
It was within a couple weeks ago, or a couple months ago. I mean, I want to say there might be something you guys have different. Like, don't you guys have like a secret key or something like that?
Well, the Litecoin native wallet, I believe, was maybe 2 months ago. So if it was beyond that, it might have been confusing because there was no built-in wallet. Now it's really easy. You just click a button, it builds a Litecoin wallet, and it's good to go.
Yeah, I want to say I had to create a Decred wallet. I had to write down a ton of words, right? You guys had more than 24 or something like that.
So
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think
it's pretty big. And then you have to write down words for the DEX itself, but that's your seed, which recovers all your funds. So it's kind of important. But yeah, I can see from a user experience, someone just kind of wanting to test it out, it can be a little, painful. So, okay, that's really good feedback.
Well, and I'll give you the same feedback, Johnny, because I would love to do some stuff on the same thing, demonstrate like the Digi ID I'm interested in. And I reached out to somebody and they're like, well, here's a tutorial. And I'm like, no, I want to like do it live so people can see it, because you got to break that kind of like fear barrier that somebody who maybe can ask some questions that you don't know to ask and instill some confidence in using the tools.
I love that idea. And we can, on this platform here, this StreamYard platform that we're using, you can actually, as long as you're comfortable, you can actually present your screen on here as well. So that would be a great idea, actually, to get somebody that's not opened it before and to actually run it. The one thing I'd say about DCRDEX, and I've been working with some of the Digibyte guys, it is worth waiting until the native wallet is ready. But also, hopefully in a few weeks, there'll be the standalone version. There is already a standalone version, but as a proper package. And when I set up the standalone version about a month ago, it was remarkable how much easier it was, especially if you're not a Decred person. So if you don't care about Decred at all, having to set up Decrediton is actually a bit of a pain in the ass for an external. If you want to like trade Litecoin to Bitcoin and you have to set up Decrediton, which is obviously the Decred wallet, it is a bit of a pain in the ass. Whereas with the new standalone packages that literally they are being built, hopefully it shouldn't be too much longer. You can install Decred, and it just literally goes through the process. And then DCRDEX, and once you've got DCRDEX installed, every time you open up a new wallet, a native wallet, you don't have to create any more keys or anything like that. So it's just one key. And it took me less than 5 minutes to set up it's called DEX-C at the moment, but it will be the standalone package. It was really, really easy. It was cool. But yeah, Decred does have 32 characters or 32 words for its passphrase, which is crazy.
Can I just mention? Sorry.
Yeah.
I think Zcashers are going to be especially interested in using DCRDEX. Right now, you need to spin up a full node, and this presents a bit of an issue. But of course, we've got some major updates coming, which is going to make the native Zcash wallet in DCRDEX much easier. But also just to point out the fact that in the recent couple of weeks, we've seen some increasing regulatory pressure around privacy coins. And I think that decentralized exchanges are going to see, I think there's a lot more incentive for good DEXs that work well. And so keep up the good work, guys, because you're going to see a lot more people coming your way fairly soon, I think.
Yeah. I just wanted to, sorry. I just wanted to stress that, now you read a lot about DEXs on Twitter and so on, because of course many people would be interested. The regulator is quote unquote helping us in some way because it's driving people to self-custody and to DEXs. And okay, I'm not shilling for the regulators at all, but there is a silver lining there. And it's important to stress, the difference between various DEXs. And I always, stress how incredible it is that this one, has no fees at all. It's a purely public good, and you don't need Decred. The Decred coin is not used, so you can. It's not a part of the necessary infrastructure. You can you can trade Bitcoin with Litecoin without going through Decred at all. But I just wanted to mention what Litecoin Underground said. I think, the Decred address structure and everything is just same as Bitcoin or Litecoin. There is no difference there. We have same addresses. We don't have any secret key or anything. But yeah, there is a longer seed for the than the 12 seed one. Yeah, that's true. But otherwise, the credit is the same.
Hey, so I've been interested in Thorchain for a while as well, right? And I do think DeFi is, as we're seeing, is going to end up being pretty necessary for crypto to function in the next decade here. What is there? You mentioned you need liquidity. Is there an incentive for people to provide liquidity on DCRDEX?
I know there's a market maker bot, but I don't know if there. I think maybe Phoenix Green, you can answer this because you've been playing around with that. But there is a market maker bot which they're continually working on. I don't know if there's direct incentives. I don't know, Phoenix, if you can answer that.
Yeah, the market maker bot is fantastic, but the real incentives is, say for instance, I don't know what Thorchain's like. I haven't used that, so maybe you can give me some back and forth on this. But if I do a trade from DCR to Litecoin, I can do it at spot value, so whatever the market's saying it is. But if I was to do something like that on Coinbase, the initial fee, depending on how much, say for instance, I want to send £1,000, the initial fee starts at like £1.50. I don't know what that is in dollars, but £1.50, and then it, depending on how much you do. So a trade can cost me about £7 for like a £1,000 trade or whatever. Whereas just 2 days ago, I built up enough volume on the DCR to Litecoin pair. I did 40 trades backwards and forwards, just literally trading with myself to build up 80 DCR of volume, sorry, not liquidity. And it cost me less than 20p, less than 20 cents. And if you were to do 20 trades on Thorchain, what would that look like? Do you know?
More.
Well, I'm not talking about the trading side. I'm talking about the liquidity side.
Yeah.
So as a liquidity provider, I don't look at it as often as I probably should, but essentially there are some fees that are incurred. So there's spread based on how big your trade is versus how much liquidity there is. And then there's also a transaction fee. And then anybody who's providing liquidity gets a portion of that based on how much of the liquidity they're providing. So if I'm 10% of all the Litecoin in the pool are mine, I get 10% of all transaction fees that happen on Thorchain. So it's like a way of accruing, being paid for parking your money there. Essentially, it's like a proof of stake system would be a good way to describe it.
Yeah, so it doesn't really work like that. So the money that you are trading with is your own, and the only way I can really describe benefits is in that trade. You're not going to earn money from parking your asset there, apart from what's made on a trade. So if you set up a market bot of say a 2% spread and it keeps getting taken, you will make a 2% spread. There's no front running, but you'll also make the fees. So rather than paying Thorchain, and like I said, I don't know what Thorchain's charges the participants, but I know Coinbase is something like £1.50. That's the initial charge. So rather than paying that for every £1,000 you send backwards and forwards, you're literally making that. So I worked it out the other day. It was something like a 3% profit that you would make on every single trade by not doing it on a DCRDEX or not doing it on a centralized exchange. How that compares to Thorchain, I would be interested to know. I'd be interested to know if it's a lot more. And that's really where your middle ground is going to be. The thing with DCRDEX is it is peer-to-peer. The market maker bots are coming, and if you have a lot of liquidity providers or liquidity, it's not really a provider, then there becomes more scope for trade. But they don't have this kind of this middle ground that Thorchain has, where you can park your money there and it sets up the trade between Rune and whatever the two assets are. Mm-hmm. It's purely peer-to-peer. But there's going to be some scope in the market making bots, but yeah, it's not going to be the same way. It's almost impossible to think of it that way, unfortunately.
I have one question for you guys. This is about the name. So the theory is that because it's called DCRDEX, people from other projects don't like it because they assume there's some sort of rent seeking where you need the Decred token. So in Decred, we're discussing whether we should change the name to something else, to something more neutral. I want to just hear your opinion, maybe, because that's one thing we've been talking about a lot. Should we change the name?
I don't.
Dex?
What was that?
You could change it to Bison Dex or any other large animal.
But do you think the name Decred Dex is preventing people from, say, ZCash from trying it out?
Not necessarily. I can see where you're coming from with the thought that DCR would be required to make a trade. That would just, I think people would probably expect that. But similar to like Atomic Dex, I don't think any Komodo is required to make a trade there, but people still use it. It's a good name.
Except the Atomic Wallet, what
They're not
happened?
related.
The Atomic Wallet, the name Atomic in front of anything is now bad luck.
Yeah. Nuclear.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess to me, I don't think having it linked to a coin is necessarily a positive. Not to be critical, but you're trying to welcome in all crypto users, and it doesn't tell me. Dex is, again, I don't know. Maybe you come up with some other, like he just said. Maybe you call it Bison or whatever it is, right? It doesn't even need to say Dex. The way marketing works, that's a whole another animal, but. Yeah, it would feel like if I said, "Hey, here's this Litecoin exchange," people would go, "Okay, well, do I have to have Litecoin, or can I only get Litecoin?" They might just give them pause, right?
It's a very good point.
I would second that. Ultimately, people care how it works again, not necessarily who it's from. And then I would just add an additional point to, adding volume to Decred Dex and all DEX in general, right? And we've seen DEX volume across the board begin to pick up as the larger narrative understands the roles that these centralized exchanges have played, and really what kind of casinos they were, versus, helping build a permissionless marketplace. So DEX is already beginning to climb, and DeFi obviously was the start of that in 2021. But now we can see, some of the problems with DeFi from a permissioned perspective, and the ability to rug pull and create all sorts of scams at breakneck speed, right? So now we're to what you guys are building. something that is truly peer-to-peer, wallet-to-wallet exchanges, and how do you bring that into the larger narrative? And I think, kind of calling it DCRDEX, I don't know if that makes sense. Probably something more generic to get into the larger, conversation. And then two, the need for this can't just be about asset speculation and trading. It really then comes to projects figuring out how their coin is going to be used, and what's the utility of that coin, and why somebody might want to change protocols into your network versus someone else's network, right? So, privacy, obviously ZCash is focused in on and helping understand how privacy is important and how it can be used in order to solve a real problem. Litecoin, same idea, right? With when do you use Mimblewimble versus like just a good payment layer that's accepted everywhere, that's already integrated in all these platforms, like you said earlier. And for Digibyte, same sort of conversation, whether it's Digi Assets or Digi ID, like how do we continue to build use cases for these chains that would take people to actually go and say, hey, I'd like to participate in what only Digibyte can do, or what only Litecoin could do, or ZCash or Decred, whatever the case might be. And that itself, I think, drives volume to the DEX.
Just to add something, I really appreciate your feedback here. I totally agree. And one I see a lot of positive aspects to DAOs, to decentralized organizations. I see them, they're this incredibly resilient and anti-fragile system. But at the same time, it also has some negative things, right? We have to be honest. And one of the negative things about DAOs is, just how hard it is to sometimes to move things forward, like just with the just like changing the name of the DEX is a really hard process to come to an agreement. I think it will take a long time simply because there is no CEO that could just say, okay, this is not working, let's change the name. And I'm probably the only person in the world that thinks that DAO should have like a kind of a CEO. And I know it's a very unorthodox opinion, but in my opinion, you can always replace the CEO. You can vote him in and out. You can get then the efficiency of having like someone like a CEO and basically the protection you get from having a coin voting and so on. I don't know, but basically I think this is one potential issue with DAOs. It's kind of similar to democracies. You compare democracies and more autocratic systems, right? Democracies are, we all agree that democracies are better, but there are some things that are, also problematic in democracies. Like sometimes it's really hard to make any changes, whereas having more centralized government can really create changes fast. Anyway, I agree with definitely 100%. I agree with the name change. I think it's needed because it's confusing a little bit.
You could just take Satoshi DEX. Just call it something like,
I like that.
It's out there.
I think we just got
it.
I think we just got the name.
Stat DEX. I'm down.
Let's reserve the domain name first.
That's great. Guys, we've been going for almost an hour and a half. It's been an absolutely amazing discussion. Hopefully it hasn't been too fragmented. I think we've all been pretty much on board, and it's been lovely hearing all of the different perspectives. I specifically like the one from Litecoin Underground about doing live demonstrations with new people and building up. So if you're up for that, you might be getting a call from me, and we'll do a live demo of onboarding you to DCRDEX. That'd be great. So just to round up, if we go round and just tell us where we can find you, and anything else you want to close up with. So let's start with ZK Squirrel and work round.
Thanks. You can find me twitter.com/ZK Squirrel. You could also go to twitter.com/ZecHub. And if you have any ideas for like tutorials, videos that we can make, documentation that we could make, let me know and we'll get it done.
Litecoin Underground?
Yeah, the best place to find me is Twitter. I'm Litecoin Underground. I think I'm at LTC Underground is my actual tag. I do have a podcast and a YouTube, but every Wednesday at 9 Eastern, we do a Twitter Spaces. I've been doing that for like a year and a half now, and it's a pretty fun conversation. We get into all sorts of different topics. But I would say, I guess in summary, the thing I'm trying to do is this community building stuff. I do think a multi-asset future is it's the only realistic future. It feels silly to even have to say it, but there are people out there that are delusional and think it's not possible. But
There's a lot of people.
yeah, there's a lot of people who believe that. So, it's not a fight. Like you said, this isn't an infighting thing between communities. And I think at the end of the day, most people who are in some of these decentralized chains, we're all kind of aiming for the same common goal, and you don't need to demonize each other. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm trying to build things, so much is built on fear. I hope we can kind of turn the ship, and that not everything's built on fear, but more like Johnny Law talks about, more optimism for what these things will do in the future. We're just a little bit too into the world's going to collapse and you got to hold on to these things for dear life. Like, I think that's true, but that kind of stunts growth too. So just relax a little bit,
Brilliant stuff. Johnny Law.
I think Litecoin was talking to me a little bit there. I have a tendency to air all of my thoughts, and that's sometimes a bad thing. But you can find me mostly on Twitter, Johnny Law 2021, or if you just search the $ Digibyte, you will certainly see me pop up in there, as I am somewhat prolific and providing all sorts of data points. And then to I guess sum up my thoughts on our conversation today is it's a start, and I really do appreciate the openness and presence of mind to understand that how we build moving forward has to be very much different than what we've done thus far. It's not a shouting match in which we try to have our voice heard. It is a collaboration in terms of how do we serve Satoshi's original intention through these protocols and bringing them together to continue to build out capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Exodus.
Yep. You can find me on Twitter, Exodus DCR. And yeah, thanks for everyone coming here. I'd love to hear more DCRDEX feedback in the future, just so we can make it better and better. Trading between altcoins on DCRDEX is awesome. I did a trade Decred to Litecoin. It was basically free. I never lost control of my money. It was all self-custody, and it felt really good. And I would like for more people in crypto to experience that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tivra?
I wanted to first of all thank you, Phoenix Green, for hosting this. It's been really, I mean, this is really an important thing. I'm really happy that it happened and it went so well. I learned a lot from the feedback of other communities. I think Decred can learn a lot by just hearing the honest feedback from other communities. So this is really excellent. And thanks also to Exitus for the excellent questions he asked. I'm on Twitter mostly. My Twitter handle is a bit strange. It's like was praxis, but it doesn't matter. You can just search Tivra and I'm there. And I host Twitter Spaces sometimes, so I hope really to invite some of you on the Twitter Spaces. I had some technical difficulties with Twitter, but I think I fixed that, so it should be they should be restarting soon. This was an excellent start, and I think we can all learn a lot from talking to each other. It's been a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. No, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. And let's make sure we do this again. We're going to run this, we've been running State of the Market now for well over a year, every month, normally the first Sunday of every month. We left it a week this time just to get as many people on as we possibly could. But let's do it again next month. Let's get some new people on. So if you're in the chat or if you're watching this after it's aired, give me a shout, and that's Decred Society at Decred Society on Twitter or Decred Magazine on Twitter. give me a shout. Let's get a few people together. Let's do this again next month. Let's talk some different communities, and let's really start to build this, share our thoughts and communicate, and let's start challenging each other to use each other's tech as well, and give it a go, and do some more live demos and all that stuff. So it's been great. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all next time. Cheers.